Also want to point out that we'll be having some special Saturdays forthcoming starting here in a couple of weeks, where we have some television sponsorships. And on May the 26th here, the Saints Hall of Fame Museum will be open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it is presented by Fox 8 WVUE Television, and they will be here and presenting the Saints Hall of Fame, and they're already running promotions for us, and we appreciate that as well. Otherwise, the museum is open by appointment on a weekly basis, and the cost is $7 per person, $5 for a group of 10 or more, and we hope you will find others to come and see what we think is an outstanding display tracing the history of the New Orleans Saints. Of course, the Saints Hall of Fame opened in 1988, so we're dealing with almost 25 years of hard work by a media selection committee, by an advisory committee, and by a board of directors that has helped to see this through to this point. Of course, the primary charge each and every year of both the media selection committee and the advisory committee, which is comprised of our living Saints Hall of Famers, is to recommend, nominate, and then go through a voting process to select our Saints Hall of Famers on an annual basis. As you see in your handouts, you'll be able to see those who have been inducted previously, not just to the Hall of Fame, but also our Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award winners. And obviously, we have some very special people that have been honored previously, and we certainly feel like we have some very special people that are being honored here today. First and foremost, we start with our Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award. Those that are familiar with it understand what it is. The Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award is presented on an annual basis to someone who has contributed to the betterment of the New Orleans Saints organization and supported the New Orleans Saints organization in great fashion. This is a category that does not include any Saints players or coaches or primary front office personnel. The Media Selection Committee devised this as a way to honor those who deserve to be honored, who clearly did not fit into the other criteria that we've spoken of. And we've had some great winners over the years, from great fans to people that have served in the media to people that have worked in the Saints organization. And this year's recipient is someone that needs no introduction. When you talk about Jim Henderson, you're talking about an individual who's been here since the late 1970s. I remember when he got here in 1978. And he took over in a difficult situation at Channel 4, and he made it his own in a very short period of time. Consummate professional, a guy that you aspire to based upon the way he conducts his business and the way he understands how to use the medium. Of course, Jim has been the sports director at WWL-Television since 1978, and he retired in January of this year after an illustrious career there. But he's far from retired where the New Orleans Saints are concerned, because he remains the voice of the New Orleans Saints on WWL Radio as well as on the Saints Radio Network. Jim is a guy that everyone appreciates, a guy that everyone respects, and clearly he's very deserving of this based upon what he has contributed to the New Orleans Saints organization over the years. Jim will be with us at our induction in September. It's going to be the weekend of September 21st through the 23rd. As you might imagine, if you're going to miss, it's going to be for a good reason. He's with his daughter right now, and he sends his regrets, but he also made sure that he was well represented here today by a guy that's near and dear to all of us and who has to put up with him at these games over and over again each and every week, and dealing with all those colloquialisms that only he can understand and we can't. It's a pleasure to welcome and introduce to you, to say a few words on Jim's behalf, the color analyst on the Saints Radio Network and on WWL Radio, former Saints fullback and scout and friend, Hokie Gajan. Hokie?
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. I accept this award on behalf of Jim Henderson. I'm not as eloquent as he is, and I'm not a smart-ass like he is, but that's beside the point. I don't know, I asked Ken yesterday, I said, what's the dress code for this thing? And he said, anything you want to wear. Came in here and see people wearing coat and ties. I mean, I dress more like swamp people than I do media. But anyway, I mean, other than playing in the NFL, the most fun that I've had covering the NFL is doing the broadcast booth with Jim Henderson. We're going into our 13th season this year. I played 7 years as a player, 14 years as a scout, but I think the last 13 years have been the most enjoyment that I've had with it's all been with the New Orleans Saints. And Mr. Benson, I want to thank you for buying the team in 1985, and then a guy like Deuce McAllister down there that just all-time leader in Saints rushing yardage and everything else. I mean, it's a privilege to have been accompanied with y'all, been employed by you, Mr. Benson. Deuce, had the pleasure of watching you play, but I know that Jim would love to be here today, and I just I don't know. I mean, to me, it's the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I couldn't envision myself doing anything else for any other NFL team. It's been an absolute pleasure, except for maybe this off season. You know, there's a little bit of been a little bit of turmoil, but other than that, just want to thank everybody. I know Jim would love to be here, and I feel very honored that he asked me to get this award for him today. So having said that, I'll turn it over to the real pros over here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hokie. And again, we want to make it clear the actual induction takes place on All Saints Weekend, which this year will be September 21st through 23rd in conjunction with the Saints home game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Jim will be honored at that time, as well as our other honorees. Of course, our Saints Hall of Fame inductees, the process is very simple. Our media selection committee convenes every year. Our advisory committee, which consists of our living Saints Hall of Famers, they make a recommendation to us. Whoever receives the most votes, they put before the media selection committee as the person they'd like to see be inducted. And each and every year, by and large, the media selection committee has seen fit to induct that individual. This year was no exception. To be eligible for the Saints Hall of Fame, you have to be out of the Saints organization, can't be doing anything for at least 3 years. Of course, the NFL rule is 5 years, but we have a 3-year moratorium to be able to make sure that guys are retired and not going to play for other teams and things of that nature. Clearly, we've had some times over the years where that's changed based upon guys deciding to resume playing again, but that's not the case this year. This year, the process was easy for the first person I'll introduce because he was in his first year of eligibility, and the advisory committee recommended him. And our media selection committee not only saw fit to vote him in, but to do so in unanimous fashion, and that hasn't happened very often. And of course, when you consider his accomplishments over the course of his career, you can understand why. Played for the Saints for 8 seasons, was a 2-time Pro Bowl player, 2-time All-Pro as well. Of course, was a first-round draft pick of the New Orleans Saints out of Ole Miss in 2001, picked 23rd overall. He was wondering at that time why the Saints were choosing him after they had Ricky Williams, but he found out pretty quickly as to why that was the case. He retired as the all-time leading rusher in New Orleans Saints history and the all-time leader in touchdowns scored. He was 10th in receptions as well, so this was an all-around player. But more than that, he was a guy that was extremely well respected, not just in the locker room, but by the individuals that work in the media industry on a day-to-day basis, and by the fans who loved him. And you can still hear that echo in your ears. Deuce. They weren't booing, they were yelling Deuce. And he accomplished so much on the field. And I think it was only appropriate to show you how much the organization loved Deuce that they brought him back for the playoffs in 2009 on the way to that Super Bowl run and signed him and put him on that field and led that team out before that Arizona Cardinals game. It was a very special moment for him, but it was special for a lot of other people too. And now we hope he'll be remembered in special fashion in the history of Saints with this honor that we're bestowing upon him. It's my pleasure to introduce our Saints Hall of Fame first electee for the class of 2012, Deuce McAllister. Deuce?
Well, just to be able to sit by Hokie and slash Jim Henderson is definitely an honor. But you know, he's an LSU guy. I don't hold that against him. You know, just being an Ole Miss guy. Definitely want to thank Mr. Ken Trahan, obviously the media, Mr. Benson, Mr. Mickey Loomis, Miss Benson, as well as Miss Rita. You know, words can't describe it. And just speaking about my induction, it's not just about me. You know, there are a ton of great players that I played with, and it may be myself going in, but it's about my teammates as well. And it'll always be that way because the things that I was able to accomplish, it was because of other guys. And I was just able to go out there and execute, and without those guys, it would not have happened. So it's definitely a humbling experience to be able to be inductee into the Saints Hall of Fame. It's always a dream of a player to be able to say that you were able to contribute as one of the best players or one of the elite players of an organization, and I think that holds true. You know, if you haven't had the opportunity to go in and look at the Hall of Fame, it's a pretty special place. You know, it's obviously unique in a lot of different ways, just because of where this organization has come and where we are today. And I think that we can show and prove for the next 15, 20, 30 years that we are one of the elite organizations, and you know, we've got the right group leading us. You know, and one thing about a little turmoil, it only builds character. You know, so regardless of what we're going through as an organization, you know, we've been through a little worse. We've been through a little worse, and we were able to bounce back and survive, and you know, that will be the case in this situation as well. So just thank everyone for coming out. Thank the committee for electing me. I'm going in with an individual that I definitely admire. You know, he didn't have to do what he did as far as buying the organization and keeping the team here, but he did it because he loves New Orleans, and you know, it's a special moment for myself to be an inductee with Mr. Benson. So it's a pretty special group, and it means a lot to myself. And you know, like I said, I want to thank the organization and my teammates, and obviously the selection committee for inducting myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Deuce. Before we get to our second inductee, we want to recognize a lot of members of the New Orleans Saints organization who are here present today, and their support is valued greatly. And of course, they're here to support the next person we'll introduce as well as Deuce and the others. First and foremost, I want to recognize Rita Benson-LeBlanc, who's been an owner of the New Orleans Saints and done a great job, and it's great to have her here as well. Rita, we appreciate you. I also want to recognize the Executive Vice President and General Manager of the New Orleans Saints, who's done a tremendous job in producing a consistent winner, including a Super Bowl champion, and he's a tough guy. He'll endure tough times, and it's great to see Mickey Loomis here today. Mickey? Speaking of vice presidents, he does everything, not just the financials, but the advising, and does a tremendous job. He's born and raised, and he's done an awesome job with the New Orleans Saints and continues to be one of the most valuable employees this organization has. Dennis Lauscha. Dennis? Right behind Dennis, another vice president who takes care of us in the media and has for many, many years, since I think 1998, and has done a great job and has moved up, and rightfully so, in the organization, and has contacts nationwide, and we deeply appreciate him too. Greg Bensel. Greg? Many of Greg's staff in here want to salute Doug Miller and Justin Massione and Matt Ryan, and can thank them for the hard work that they do on a daily basis. Also want to thank Ian Tigelaar, who's in the back, who helps me out anytime we need help within the framework of the Superdome here. Cindy Hart, who's here, who does a great job with suite sales and is always pleasant to deal with. And also one of our board members, another vice president of New Orleans Saints, who helps us out significantly, Mike Stanfield. Mike, where are you? And before we introduce our next inductee, I also want to salute our president, Joe Impastato, who served us for many, many years in that capacity, and we appreciate his kind service for many years in helping us to become what we are today. With that, I also want to have the pleasure of introducing our second Hall of Fame electee for the class of 2012. And I think it's safe to say that he's the most significant person in New Orleans Saints history, and I don't believe that's a stretch by any stretch of the imagination. You know, those of us that are born and raised here, that were at the first game as I was, and many of us well, that have worked in the media industry since the 1970s as I have, and that had a wife dance for the Saints, and also have a sister dance for the Saints, and a dad that was a season ticket holder for life, understand what we were dealing with in 1984 and 1985 when this franchise was in a bit of jeopardy. They already lost an NBA team. There was a real possibility of losing an NFL team. And it really required someone to step up. Did he ever? He not only saved the franchise, but helped to make it something much more significant than it ever could have been imagined. And he's persevered and withstood a lot of hits along the way, and also helped build a consistent winner. It started pretty quickly with hiring Jim Finks and Jim Mora, then continue with hiring Jim Haslett and the people that were here in the early 2000s, and then, of course, most recently, when Mickey Loomis took over and Sean Payton came along, and the Saints and the community have recognized something that they will cherish for a lifetime. Those of us that have been here will have those memories to last forever. The return of the Dome in 2006 in September was special. All this possible because a hometown hero, if you will, stepped up and decided that this team needed to be here on a long-term basis. But he's invested in this community in so many other ways, through the building next door, to the development here, to the NBA franchise, to television, and other business adventures, while meanwhile investing in charitable organizations frequently and willingly. It's a pleasure to introduce our second electee to the Saints Hall of Fame for the class of 2012, Saints Principal Owner and President, Mr. Tom Benson. Tom?
Oh boy, I ought to just sit down now. But, you know, I was looking at Gleason's wife and baby, and I told him how fortunate he was to have that baby, huh? And his wife too. Gee, what a wonderful thing. Very proud of you too. And you'll hear more from him, huh, later. Oh, yeah, I want to thank you all for being here and that nice warm reception. Sometime in the past 25 years, I haven't gotten a nice warm reception, you know. And that, thank you too, Gentry, and for what you're doing here and in this Hall of Fame. If you haven't had a chance to visit it, boy, it is really outstanding. It's as fine as any. I went to, we played Green Bay a couple of years back, and I went through there, and I was impressed. But now we can show them something. I'm going to tell you, with the Superdome, as first class as any place. By the way, I have to mention too, Championship Square over here in the balconies. Fox studio will be right down there pretty soon. Boy, this is really the center of town, huh? Getting to be so important here, and that we all ought to be very pleased at what's happened in the last 25 years. You know, it's an honor for me to be recognized in this class of 2012, huh? And along with the great players that ever wore the Saints uniforms, huh? If you haven't had a chance, visit the museum and see things like you see in there, along with Deuce McAllister now, and of course the voice of our Saints, Jim Henderson, and now and Mr. Gleason here, who was an outstanding player, or is an outstanding part of the Saints organization. Also, I'd like to thank my wife, Gail, and her unwavering support. You know, sometimes your wives are always not supportive a little bit, huh? Especially after you're married 8 years. and of course, Rita, my granddaughter, who's there with me on a day-to-day basis, and that you'll hear some things about that coming up right in the next few days. I think it's going to be very exciting, and that along with the excitement for me here today. Both my wife, my granddaughter, especially my wife in the last few days, boy, she got a lot of media attention. Jeez, on Christmas Live. I never saw so many letters. Nobody ever sent me letters like that, you know. But it's all right. It's okay. I'll hold it down a little bit, all right? We all enjoy these great times together. And, you know, we faced some tough times together, too. You all didn't always agree with me, and I didn't always agree with you. I'm talking to the media right now. Yeah, but I think that it's been a wonderful 25 years for me, and I hope it's been a wonderful 25 years for you and our fans. And we're looking for better things to come. We're looking to be better, and we're looking to be stronger. I look forward to the 2012 season, and I especially look forward to making history. We're going to make history. This is our goal this year. I'm going to tell you right now, to win the Super Bowl in our own stadium. Boy, think about that. Nobody's ever done that before, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to really work hard, and we're already working hard to accomplish this under trying circumstances, but that's okay. You know, if the old saying is, when things get hard, that's when the tough get going, huh? And then we're going to be tough. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Congratulations. I also want to point out, as part of the selection process, as I mentioned earlier, part of our requirements are you have to be out of the Saints organization for 3 years. Obviously, he's not. What is required there is that the Media Selection Committee had to make an addendum and an amendment to our bylaws. It's only happened once before in Saints history, and that happened on behalf of Jim Finks, when we waived the waiting period to induct Jim Finks. And the committee saw fit to do so for Mr. Benson now, because we believe that he richly deserved this honor now, and that's why it was done. So I salute the Media Selection Committee for a job well done. They take it very seriously, and they care very, very much. Many of those folks are here today, so if you're here, take a bow, raise your hand, all the members of our committee. We appreciate you very much. Also want to salute Vicki Newmeyer. I didn't see Vicki behind Doug there. Vicki, another one of the Saints vice presidents, one of the most pleasant people you'll meet. Vicki, it's great to have you with us as well. And our board members, as I alluded to before, many of them are here today. You guys can raise your hands and take a bow. All of our board members that are here, please do so. Our last honoree today, and this was something that the committee decided upon as well. One of the things that's important, and I know the Saints have recognized this, when it comes to retiring numbers, that's a very difficult bridge to cross, because you only have so many numbers, and you have some very significant players in the history of the franchise. Therefore, when you're trying to honor somebody, well, you have to think very, very carefully about doing so, because in a manner of speaking, you open Pandora's box. In this particular instance, the committee felt like it was due, it was just, it was timely to honor someone who's not being inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame, but is being honored for life by the Saints Hall of Fame because of his contributions on the field, his contributions off the field, what he's meant to people in this community, what he means to people here, what he means to his family, what he means to the New Orleans Saints. Steve Gleason is an underdog. He was an underdog when he got here. And this was not a guy that was a high draft pick. This was not a guy that was expected to be an all-pro player. This was not a guy that was expected to be a starter. In fact, the expectations were probably, man, if I can make it through the next week of camp, that's great. Well, he made it through several weeks. He made it through 7 years here in New Orleans with the Saints, and was loved by his coaches, by Jim Haslett and then by Sean Payton. Speaking of Sean Payton, I speak to Coach pretty frequently. He can talk to me. He can't talk to members of the organization, which is a shame, frankly, but he sends his absolute best. He couldn't be happier and prouder of Tom Benson and Deuce McAllister being honored, and he's very happy for Jim Henderson, and he's extremely happy for this gentleman whom we're introducing right now. He loves him. Steve Gleason was a guy that will always be remembered for the play against the Falcons on the return of the Superdome. And listen, it's nice to be thought about for one moment, but he was much more than that, both as a player and in the community. Simply put, he's loved by everyone. It's hard to find anyone that would have anything other than great things to say about him as a person. Certainly his teammates would tell you the same thing about him as a player. We have enormous respect for him, and as a result, the Media Selection Committee made a decision that we were going to honor Steve Gleason with a legacy gallery here in the Saints Hall of Fame Museum that will bear his name. We'll have a picture of him as well, and remind people of who he is for many, many years to come, because he deserves that. And it's befitting that in that particular area, our Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award winners will be displayed, because these are the people that contributed to this organization's success, the betterment of, and supported it in loving fashion for many, many years, as he has. There's a lot left in this gentleman. He's here today because he loves the New Orleans Saints, he loves Tom Benson, Gail and Rita and Deuce, Jim Henderson, and everybody that's ever played here. And that love's being reflected right back at him, okay, on a regular basis every day. So it's a pleasure for us to announce that our legacy gallery, which will include our Joe Gemelli Fleur-de-Lis Award winners, will now be named after this gentleman to my right. Please give a round of applause and a welcome to Steve Gleason. Steve?
God bless. I was think it's funny how quiet it gets as I'm approaching the microphone. First of all, with football, I never fit in quite perfectly. I was the linebacker in high school and college, so I had to find a way to fit in to the NFL. So I suppose it's no surprise that with the Hall of Fame, I found kind of a side entrance into the Hall of Fame, but for some reason, although I never fit perfectly, I always found a way to fit in. So I don't think it's any different here. So thanks, Ken. Thanks to the committee for being creative enough to find a way to include me. So back to football, I think some thanks goes out to Mickey especially, because I think there were years where he had to think creatively as well on how to keep me around. But again, I think that faith paid off. So thanks. Regarding the inductees, first of all, Jim Henderson, I think especially you would be there, realize what an amazing guy he is. I dabbled in some media after I retired, and just to be able to see him and appreciate his work is very, very special to me. And he's a great talent, but even more so, I think a great person. Regarding Deuce, I've said this before while I was playing, but I would see him after games with ice on his knees, like gashes on his arms, and I'd be like, man, you're my hero. Speaking of heroics, he always seemed like he had like a force shield on him, around him like a superhero. So beyond that, he's a great man, and I think in the end, what will we take away from football is more than block punts or Super Bowl rings. It's the people that you come in contact with. I think Deuce is one of those people where I'm feeling very lucky to have crossed paths with him. Although on the practice field, sometimes felt unlucky. Mr. Benson, congratulations. I don't think people realize the vision and the determination and willingness to let people lead for him and putting faith in Mickey and Sean, and there's a finesse to what this guy does. So very much congratulations from me. I think just to be here is special for me. This city has become my home, and this organization is more than any city. It's been woven into the fabric of this city. So luckily for me, I get to share and enjoy all the beautiful parts of the city, which include this organization. So thank you all for including me.
Congratulations to Steve. It's well-deserved. And again, I commend our media selection committee for a job well done. We think we've got an incredible class, which we'll induct here coming up September the 21st through the 23rd, which will be All Saints Weekend, again in conjunction with the Kansas City Chiefs game. I want to remind you that you're welcome to come in and take a look at the museum. Television can get all the shots you want. Guys will be up here, and if you'd like to talk to them, you certainly can. We have sandwiches and iced tea available for everyone.